With my 35 years of experience, our team at U.S. Asset Management can deliver professional investment management, financial planning to help you target your goals, and even specialized divorce financial analysis if you need it. We are here to help you make better decisions with your money. Call U.S. Asset Management today and let's get to work in your financial future.
The left is siding with illegals, attacking ICE, and fighting to let non-citizens vote. Republican Kelvin King is a graduate of the Air Force Academy, Air Force veteran, and conservative businessman. As Georgia's Secretary of State, Kelvin will put Americans first, root out corruption, clean up voter rolls, and restore confidence in our elections. The other candidates had their chance and failed. Republican Kelvin King for Secretary of State, leadership Georgia voters can trust.
Pro-Trump warrior Steve Gooch won't just cut property taxes in Georgia. He'll throw them straight in the wood chipper.
Senior citizens on fixed income shouldn't be forced from their homes. Neither should veterans who have served our country and fought for our freedoms. And neither should anyone else for that matter. Frankly, these crazy property taxes are un-American. I'll tear them to shreds. We'll make home ownership great again.
Steve Gooch for Lieutenant Governor. Toughest tax cutter Georgia's ever seen.
Do you already have your investments with Fidelity? I'm David Cross with U.S. Asset Management. Did you know that you can assign your investment management to my team and put my 35 years of experience to work for you? You simply assign us as your investment manager and you keep the same username and password. Professional management, and you get to work with someone who shares your values. Call U.S. Asset Management today and put us to work for you.
What happens in Georgia gets revealed one by one as the facts are unsealed. From the pit comes what they don't want you to see. When the daily nugget of truth is dropped with your host, BKP.
Hey folks, how are you today? I'm your host, BKP, and you're watching BKP Politics on voiceofruralamerica.com. It's good to be back. So, I'm trying to get a podcast out daily. I really am, but it seems like it's going every other day right now because of the simple reason phone is ringing till 10 o'clock at night, starts at 6 a.m. sometimes, and I get up here in the office at the Resolute desk here at the home of voiceofruralamerica.com, and a lot of work goes into what we prepare and try to put out on a daily basis. So first, before we get started, our Substack, as you well know, we have a Substack, and I understand, this was sent to me, and I was told that if you scan right on your screen right there, if you scan that right now, that QR code will take you straight to our Substack. That is our QR code for loading our Substack. That's what I understand. You can go right to the screen and do that. So we appreciate that right there. One more time for those out in Yorba Linda, California. It takes a minute. That's what Rush used to say, right? There you go. So yesterday, I get a message to please, a little less Rick Jackson right now because we have a lot of other races. And so that's what I want to get really started at is the Rick Jackson race for governor is taking the oxygen out of the room. It really is. It's taking the oxygen out of the room, and it's making it very difficult to get information on the down-ballot races and even the top of the ticket. Because we're going to start, I'm going to keep the information rolling. We're going to go into one race today in Georgia, the Secretary of State's race. We're going to work on that one today. But as someone called me yesterday and said, how is this certain race going in your area? What do you think? And I said to the individual, I have to just tell you the truth. The Rick Jackson for Governor campaign is sucking all the oxygen out of the room. It's very selfish. It really is. It's a selfish campaign. It's very obviously he is determined to try to win his election regardless of any other Republican right now. Just saying, regardless if we're trying to get rid of John Ossoff as the U.S. Senator, the Rick Jackson for governor race is the only one you know is really going on right now or get any information on. And I told the individual yesterday that called me, I said, it's very difficult to tell you where this particular race that you're inquiring about is where it's at with the candidates based on, what? No other race can get their message out. They really can't. They can't get their message out. They can't get out in front of this one particular race. So we are going to work on every single race. We're going to go at the top of the ticket. That's where we're at today. We're going to talk about a couple things. Number one, we're going to talk about the top of the ticket. And here you go. Like I said, you can scan our QR code. We're going to leave it up there a minute. We're going to talk about the top of the ticket in Georgia and down ballot and who can win in November. So that's where we're at today. Because what we have to start focusing on, and I know the election is coming up, early voting, we'll talk about that in a minute, is coming up real soon for the primary. The primary is where both the Republican and the Democrat pick their candidate in each race, and then we run off to November to see who can win in November. But remember what I just said, who can win in November. And that's very important because as I've told you in the past, I feel Georgia Republicans have about 3 different lanes of voters. And then there's a little margin that you try to bring in from the independents or a large margin. I don't mean that we don't want a lot of independents, but we have to have our Republican vote, and there's about 3 lanes. About 3 different lanes of Republican vote in Georgia, meaning if you want to refer to it as MAGA, America First, however you want to refer to it, whatever, there's the what I call 30%, and then there's 2 other lanes of Republicans. Now, that being said, that's why we are focusing on who can win in November and how important that is, and the top of the ticket. Now, another thing I want to keep in mind, is you know what? This is the first open election in Georgia since 2018. And what I mean by that is, in 2022, it was incumbent year for Republicans. Now, Republicans hold in Georgia at the current time no U.S. Senate seats. We have 2 U.S. senators, John Ossoff and Raphael Warnock, both Democrats, okay? But in the constitutional offices in Georgia, that being governor all the way down, Republicans hold all of those seats in Georgia, from Republican all the way down to labor commissioner. Republicans hold the office. And in 2018, it was open, every one of those seats. Now, we do not stagger our elections in Georgia. We don't have off year like in 2026. We have so many constitutional offices, and then in 2028 and so forth, we have a full slate. So to understand that, when we have a 2026, we'll have the full slate of constitutional officers. Let me get that clear. So last time, Republicans, 2018, Brian Kemp, on down the line. Now, in 2022 was the year of the incumbent in Georgia. And in that year, 2022, that's when Donald Trump, then from Mar-a-Lago, he put up several candidates in Georgia, did not do very well in the primary to try to go up against Brad Raffensperger, Brian Kemp, Attorney General Chris Carr, and others. So now we're back to, and I'm going to show you one particular race in a minute, but we are back to the open field. Brian Kemp has been there for 2 terms, so on and so forth. Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger. So the field is open all the way down, with the exception of Labor Commissioner in Georgia. I forget the lady's name. She is running for re-election, Labor Commissioner in Georgia, but she was appointed by Brian Kemp not long ago, and we'll explain that. So top of the ticket. So top of the ticket is John Ossoff. Now, John Ossoff is the incumbent senator. The Cook political report, I told you yesterday, has moved the U.S. Senate seat in Georgia from the U.S. Senate seat in Georgia from toss-up to lean Democrat. So the U.S. Senate seat in Georgia has now been moved from toss-up to lean Democrat in Georgia. That's John Ossoff by the Cook political report. Top of the ticket. Now, down ballot, we start with the governor. So is it possible for Ossoff to win and Republicans still win the down ballot? Yes. But there's a couple variables you got to keep in mind that we have here. And one of those variables is that in 2022, Raphael Warnock was on the ticket for Senate. Senator Raphael Warnock was on the ballot running for re-election. But the variable that you got to keep in mind, Republicans, it was incumbent year. Got it? Got to keep that in mind. 2022, Raphael Warnock running for re-election. He won re-election against Herschel Walker, but all the other candidates, remember, were incumbents. So that's a variable. Now we have the top of the ticket, John Ossoff, and all the down ballots are open for governor. So that should create a great voter turnout in Georgia, but right now and currently with elections in Georgia and all across the country, because Donald Trump is not on the ballot, turnout is very low. Very low. Lot of variables and moving parts. So if Ossoff has coattails, now in election you have top of the ticket, and you hope the top of the ticket is strong enough to have coattails, meaning if someone goes in and pulls a lever for John Ossoff, they'll pull a lever for the Democrat governor candidate on down the line. Now, with all that being said, it has become, I don't call Georgia a purple state. Some call it a purple state. But I will tell you this, Georgia has become a state that the voter mix from independent Democrats, Republicans, right-leaning Republicans, moderate-leaning, light-leaning Republicans, all right? Same thing with Democrats, that you have to be able to run in the general election and appeal to other voters. If you cannot appeal to other voters besides your base, and I mean the hard right base in the Republican Party, you will not win in Georgia. So that's where we're at, top of the ticket. Now, I don't want to go too far with the Rick Jackson today, but as you can see, we talked about this the other day. I told you the other day there was rumor surrounding that Rick Jackson was offering, again, political rumor, that Rick Jackson was offering a substantial amount of a campaign donation, maybe in the area of $2 million, maybe, to the Georgia House Republican Party leadership PAC, which is controlled by Speaker of the House John Burns in Georgia, $2 million for endorsements. And here you go. We have Speaker Pro Tem Jan Jones, who is not returning this year. She's retiring. But Speaker Pro Tem Jan Jones has endorsed Rick Jackson. And then we have another state representative, Derek McCollum, has endorsed Rick Jackson. All right. There's another one. And they're starting to come out, the endorsements. And here is something where I want to give you something to think about, because today's segment is primarily Secretary of State. We're going to go through thoroughly the candidates, Secretary of State, what I see as the candidate that can win the general election. And that's where we're at. Top of the ticket, who can win the general election in November. So in today's race is Secretary of State. But Jackson here, I want you to keep something in mind. And we will work on this in the near future, because we're going to do Lieutenant Governor soon. But Rick Jackson, candidate for governor here on the Republican Party, tends to he's starting to campaign against Keisha Lance Bottoms. He has been campaigning against Keisha Lance Bottoms over on the Democrat side for about a month. Now, certain polling data says that Keisha Lance Bottoms is the front runner on the Democrat side. Keisha Lance Bottoms is the candidate to beat on the Democrat side for governor. Looks like she will be their nominee. Now, I do know Republicans in all Republican circles basically are saying their prayers, and they're hopeful that God will see his way. And I say that tongue-in-cheek jokingly, okay? But that Democrats will choose Keisha Lance Bottoms as their nominee, because that way they think Keisha Lance Bottoms is the most vulnerable Democrat to beat. And I do also. It's strongly my opinion. Republicans need Keisha Lance Bottoms to be the nominee. That could be the toughest opponent to beat. But there's two things before we get into our Secretary of State segment today. Rick Jackson is continually running against Keisha Lance Bottoms. Now, there's two things that are possible here. He has internal polling that he's so high, he feels it's a lock, and he will definitely be the nominee for Republicans. Who can win in November? I do not believe Rick Jackson can win in November, and I will tell you how at a later date, or why I do not think Rick Jackson at the top of the ticket. Now, what will drag down the ticket? Remember that? What will drag down the ticket? Because whether candidates like it or not, after the primary, there's a ticket, Republican ticket. And odds are, if one Republican can win, they all can win. Those are the best odds possible. It happens. So right now, is Jackson's internal polling, is it so leaning so high that he thinks he's a lock and he's starting to run against Keisha Lance Bottoms? I'm not for sure. But you see, the one guy with the blue and white shirt and the blue tie there, it looks like he just got out of the tanning booth, Geoff Duncan, former lieutenant governor as Republican in Georgia, now running for governor as a Democrat, every time Rick Jackson goes after Keisha Lance Bottoms, Geoff Duncan's numbers go up a little bit. Because Geoff Duncan is creeping upward towards that second spot, possibly a runoff with Keisha Lance Bottoms. We'll get into that. I find it interesting here that his statement says Keisha Lance Bottoms and other Democrats said they'd have to veto the Riley Gaines Act. Now, if you notice, other Democrats, right? There's Thurman. But what other Democrat is standing there? Geoff Duncan. He names Keisha Lance Bottoms and other Democrats. He will not name Geoff Duncan. I find that interesting. So here's what I want you to think about for a couple days. Okay? Here's what I want you to think about for a couple days, and we will follow up on this. Keep in mind, in 2018, Geoff Duncan, now Democrat, running for governor, Geoff Duncan in 2018 supported financially very heavy. An enormous amount of funding went from Rick Jackson to Geoff Duncan in 2018 to help him secure the lieutenant governor's office. Now you have Geoff Duncan running as a Democrat and Rick Jackson running as a Republican. So in 2018, Geoff Duncan won as lieutenant governor of Georgia 51.6, right? Sarah Riggs Amico got 48.4. Now we're going to show you some data because this is 2018 numbers. Democrats are that close. In 2018, Republicans did not run away with any elections. And it's open. So, keep in mind, in 2018, Geoff Duncan won lieutenant governor. But he chose not to run for re-election in 2022. Chose not to run for re-election in 2022. Burt Jones stepped in to run for governor in 2022. Now, these are variables, I'm telling you. So Burt Jones comes and he runs for lieutenant governor in 2022. He has the strength of Brian Kemp and the Republican incumbent ticket. He has the Donald Trump endorsement. So he wins in 2022 as lieutenant governor. Burt Jones has only served one term as lieutenant governor. And he won 51.4. You have to always remember, and this is where I'm going to leave this out here and you think about it. Burt Jones is running what should have been Geoff Duncan's second term. I will tell you what that means to me later on as I watch Geoff Duncan's numbers come up. Keep in mind, Burt Jones is serving what many, maybe even Rick Jackson, feel should have been Geoff Duncan's second term. I will let you in on what that means a little later. Now, we're going to the next one. We're going to go to the lieutenant governor. We're going to do Secretary of State right now. We'll go to lieutenant governor next. I promise there's some development, so I don't want to go too fast. But right now you have Blake Tillery, and I want to say respectfully, I did not make this graphic, but Blake Tillery, this graphic was made by the Georgia Independent, where they call him Blake Killery, where he did kill someone on a bicycle several years ago while serving as a county commissioner. We will get into that. News cycles have picked it up. And why I put this up is other lieutenant governor candidate David Clark came out and did a very Wow, explosive video. David Clark now calls him right on video Blake Killery. So we will get the lieutenant governor, I promise. Now, this is where it gets very important to me, because I'm going to start talking more and more about who can win in November. So when we get to the lieutenant governor's race, I'm going to give you a spoiler right now. Greg Dolezal, as you know, I've referred to him as Greg the Wonder Boy, Greg the Weasel, Greg Bunny Ears Dolezal. I've had all these little nice pet names for Greg Dolezal. Greg Dolezal, state senator, running for lieutenant governor, cannot win. Now, before I go any further, please, let's not get angry today. I talk politics. I study politics. All right? Greg Dolezal cannot win the general election. He has gone so far in some directions that he can't recover. If you don't like what I'm saying, let me look you in the eye. Let me look you directly in the eye. In Georgia, you will not win a statewide election if you do not get Republican vote and get some vote in some other areas. He can't do it. Dolezal escalates controversial ad strategy in lieutenant governor's race. Yes, this is the AJC, and many Republicans can't stand when they see a graphic or a headline from the AJC, but fact remains, it's on there, and he cannot win the general election. Now, there's some things happening that we're going to get into because we have some other things going on, and we want to delay lieutenant governor and a couple more to see what's happening, because we have the lawmakers being warned the Epstein Amendment is coming for you. Now, don't forget, Georgia passed what they call the Epstein Amendment. And the Epstein Amendment, let's see if I have it here. Maybe, no, I don't have it. But the Epstein Amendment is where you could do an open records request in any sexual harassment case by lawmakers, even retroactive. You can go back. Any inappropriate, any deals that were made, what would you call it? Any sealed agreements, non-disclosures, whatever they call it, anything about a harassment case or anything like that in any way, the Epstein case I had it here just a second ago, my apology. That's coming out. We're waiting for Governor Kemp to sign the Epstein Amendment that would allow open records for any sealed settlements based on sexual harassment or any other harassment of under the Gold Dome by lawmakers. As soon as Governor Kemp signs that, there's several open records ready to go. So we're kindly holding back. We have some indication of what direction that's going in, but we'll leave it at that right now. So, Secretary of State. Before I go into the Secretary of State's race, we're going to thoroughly go through the past from the time Republicans gained control of the Secretary of State's office. Everything I'm about to tell you on this race, it's all about, can we win in November? Who is the candidate most likely to win? And this one is difficult because I like so many of these candidates, but this is politics. So let's start here with the Secretary of State in Georgia has multiple responsibilities. The main responsibility is overseeing and executing our elections in the state. And obviously, that is the most vocal thing I think in Georgia politics today is our elections, election integrity, being able to trust the system, the electronic system of Dominion that we use now. But as we pick the next Secretary of State of Georgia, we have to remember what are all the things the Secretary of State's responsible for. Running elections, voter registration, certifying candidates and the results, chairs the state election board. It does not at this time. They do not chair the state election board. Correction on that, does not chair the state election board. Oversees campaign finance reports and fights voter fraud. Now that's what is on Grok. But right now, they are supposed to fight voter fraud. And at one time, the Secretary of State was the chair of the election board. No longer. So these are some of the main things, but don't forget, fight voter fraud. Handle business filings. Secretary of State of Georgia is supposed to handle business filing, registers corporations, nonprofits, trademarks, and keeps track of companies doing business in the state. So if there's outside companies doing business in the state, they keep track of that. Issues professional license. All right? Regulates over 700,000 people in dozens of trades and professions like real estate agents through licensing boards. Now, we have licensing boards in the state of Georgia and different licensing boards in the state of Georgia for different careers and professionals that have to be licensed. Over 700,000 according to AI here in dozens of trades and professions. So if you are dealing with a business or you're dealing with an individual or you're doing something where someone's required a license, you want the Secretary of State to do a good job when providing that license. Regulates securities and charities. Now keep this in mind. We'll talk about it later. The $140 million Ponzi scheme of First Liberty Building and Loan, the largest Ponzi scheme in the history in the state of Georgia. Well, regulating securities or investigating non-licensed securities, we'll say that, and charities, overseeing investments, stock sales, investment advisors, and charitable fundraising to prevent fraud. So there's a lot of things in the Secretary of State's race. Yes, elections. Yes, that's important. Yes, that's the loudest thing you hear. But it's not the only thing they do. Now, who's best equipped? So, as we go through this, you got to remember, Democrats had Kathy Cox, okay? Catherine Cox served as the Georgia Secretary of State from 1999 to 2007. She is the last Democrat. She was the first woman elected to Secretary of State in Georgia, all right? So, remember, the entire election systems in the United States goes back to Bush versus Gore Was that it? The Hanging Chad election of 2000. Hanging Chads. We remember that in Florida. Her November 2000, after Florida recount mess, Cox's office released a report showing Georgia had even more spoiled votes than Florida due to an outdated equipment like punch cards, lever machines, and inconsistent systems. So that was her claim, is we had more spoiled votes in 2020 than Florida. Punch card, levers, and inconsistent systems. In 2001, she pushed hard to reform. The legislature passed Act 166, which required new voting systems to have independent audit trail for each vote. But see, the election system that was put in place did not have an independent audit trail. The die-bolt voting machine could only, let's put it like this, regurgitate a piece of paper printout that the machine already had. There was no backup. But the law said it was supposed to have an independent audit trail. May 2002, Catherine Cox signed a $54 million contract with die-bolt election systems for touchscreen machines. All right? Now, later, critics, which may be Garland Favorito, pointed out that the machines were paperless and didn't meet an audit trail requirement from the earlier law. November 2002, remember this, November 2002, Georgia rolled out machines statewide. Now keep this in mind for all of you with Dominion. This goes back to 2000, the election in 2000. This goes back to 2002. November 2002, Georgia rolled out machines statewide, okay? The first and only state. This is where I really, right here is where I really say, wait a minute, our election system. We were the first and the only state to run an entire statewide election on direct recording electronic touchscreen machines. Did you get that? The state of Georgia was the only state to run an entire statewide election on direct recording electronic touchscreen machines. DRE. It was massive, fast implementation across all 159 counties. Now, I want to ask you a question. Where in the past have you heard it was massive, it was fast implementation of all 159 counties? And every time we come up that we want to make corrections in our election system, we continually say, well, we're in an election cycle. We can't do it right now. We have to wait till the primary. We have to wait till after the primary. There's all these reasons. But when the state of Georgia went to the first state to entirely use electronic touchscreens, what did we do? There was no argument there. We put them in place. No one went to court. No one fought it. Well, maybe there were some court cases, and I just have not looked those up. But now, Georgia was widely praised at the time for acting quickly and decisively after 2000. Cox got national recognition, including being named a top public official by Governing Magazine, right? The system eliminated hanging chads and made voting faster and more accessible. That's not 2020. This is 2000 and then 2002, right? Later, the paperless nature of those die-bolt machines became a big controversy. No way to do a meaningful recount or audit. The security researchers raised hacking concerns. Now, I want to say this to all my fine friends out there that fight election integrity. This is 2002. Hacking concerns. Cannot do a proper recount. The machine stayed in use for years. Later branded under Premier, then sold to ES&S. Now, it's really important because the next governor of Georgia, and the next Secretary of State, that's where we're going. Why is all this background necessary? And I'm going to tell you why it's necessary for me as a voter. Is because it's time, the present moment, that we put a Secretary of State in Georgia in place. The character, I'm not questioning, I will get to that later, the character, the morals that we could trust, that will finally, since 2002, it's 2026, folks, since 2002, work with all Georgians, Democrat, Republican, and Independents, to create a secure election system the citizens can trust. It's time now. Now, Catherine Cox put this in. The machine stayed in use. Now, here's another concern I have. Just for a fact, Rick Jackson, the candidate for governor, going back there, he prefers electronic voting machines. And we all know that during the Georgia legislative session that just ended in April, right, that ES&S, this goes back to our origins in Georgia, where we started with electronic voting machines, 2002, from Catherine Cox. Yes. That many years ago. That we're right back to where we started. ES&S was at our legislative session here recently, so lawmakers could go out to their mobile test site and show them how their equipment works, their voting equipment works. So, yes, Georgia under Secretary of State Catherine Cox was the first state to implement statewide recording electronics, DRE touchscreen voting systems, okay? Georgia was the first, 2002. So, we're talking about the Secretary of State's race. Since 2002, it's 2026, we have used electronic voting touchscreen devices, right? And then once we went from die-bolt, we went to Dominion. Okay? Now we're not going to take the entire show right now. So, we have been since 2002, and we have Kathy Cox, Secretary of State. Then we went to Karen Handel, Secretary of State. Then we went from Brian Kemp, Secretary of State. And I think when Brian Kemp was running for governor, we will check this. I can't remember if it was when Karen Handel was running for governor or Brian Kemp. We'll have it fact checked. But then we had an appointed Secretary of State for just a brief time. And then we went to Brad Raffensperger for 8 years, 2 terms. So we've gone since 2002 when Catherine Cox put die-bolt voting machines in electronic. Republicans have had Karen Handel, Brian Kemp, and Brad Raffensperger to my memory. Now we're going for our next Secretary of State of Georgia. Again, who can win in November? Who is the right person that will protect everyone's vote, run the office efficiently? Someone I feel we could trust. Let's go through them. Now, just so you know, one at a time. And we are going to do the Attorney General's race also. So this is Tim Fleming. Now, Tim Fleming is a current state representative in Georgia. Tim Fleming is, he was chair of the Georgia State House Blue Ribbon Panel on election to review election processes across the state of Georgia. Blue Ribbon Panel, Tim Fleming was put in place. Now, here's a little of the background on his history, Tim Fleming. Tim Fleming in 2002, while he was still in college. Now, he was still in college in 2002. He worked for Brian Kemp. Now, don't forget, Governor Brian Kemp at one time was a state senator. He worked for Brian Kemp's successful campaign for Georgia State Senate. So, as a college student, he started with Governor or then candidate for State Senate Brian Kemp. That's where he started in 2002. In 2010, he managed Kemp's successful campaign for Secretary of State. Okay? Kemp became Georgia's second Republican to hold the office behind Karen Handel. But Tim Fleming managed his campaign in 2010 for Secretary of State. In 2013, Kemp appointed Tim Fleming, all right? He appointed Tim Fleming as Deputy Secretary of State. He also served in roles like Assistant Director of Elections and Chief of Staff in the Secretary of State's office. So he was Assistant Director of Elections. See, this is his history, okay? In 2018, Fleming managed Kemp's campaign for governor. There you go. In 2019 and 2020, after Kemp won, Fleming served as Kemp's chief of staff in the governor's office until September 2020, when he left for private sector. Now, okay, their professional bond goes back 20 years. Fleming has been one of Kemp's most trusted advisors and campaign operatives. He's now a state representative and is running for Secretary of State in 2006. So here is strictly my opinion on this. And when I write the article, I wanted to say this is strictly my opinion on Tim Fleming. Some people have said to me, well, Tim Fleming is not as close to Governor Kemp as you would think. There's a long history. So here's just your bottom line on your candidate, Tim Fleming, if you pick him to be your next Secretary of State. Tim Fleming, obviously, while Secretary of State with Brian Kemp, did not sound the alarm as an assistant election supervisor or administrator, okay, did not sound the alarm on electronic voting machines then. He's been with the governor for a long time, and my opinion, he could be fine with electronic voting systems if next Secretary of State. Can he win the general election in November? Possibly. Now, I'm not doing this report today for you to like and dislike or throw things at the TV. Could he possibly win in November? Maybe. Maybe. Okay. Now, let's go with our next candidate. So, our next candidate, and again in the article I wanted to reflect, this is clearly my opinion, but this is an absolute no for me as a voter. As a voter, he's an absolute no. And that would be Gabriel Sterling. So let's look at a little bit of Gabriel Sterling's background. Gabe Sterling, political campaign history, okay, up to joining Brad Raffensperger's office. Gabriel Sterling is a candidate for Secretary of State. In 1986, at the age 15, his first campaign, he volunteered for U.S. Senator Mattingly, right? In the late 80s and early 90s, he was active in the College Republicans at the University of Georgia. He worked on various Republican campaigns. In 1992, he helped direct President George H.W. Bush's re-election campaign in Georgia. In 1994, he served as a campaign manager for Charlie Norwood's successful run for U.S. House of Representatives. In 1998, he ran himself for Georgia State House, but he lost his primary. Now moving right along. After that, he worked as a political consultant for many years. He ran campaigns for local, including he did help incorporate Johns Creek as a city and managing campaigns for 6 of the first 7 elected officials for Johns Creek. So he has a background of working to help create the city of Johns Creek, Incorporated, and then he worked for 6 of the 7 elected officials in Johns Creek on their campaigns. Now here's where it gets interesting. He also helped Brad Raffensperger with his very first campaign. Now some people don't remember that Brad Raffensperger's first campaign was what? A member of Johns Creek City Council. A city council race in Johns Creek is the first office Brad Raffensperger ever held. Okay? In 2011 to 2017, he was elected to the Sandy Springs City Council. In 2017, he ran for Fulton County Commission, and he came in 3rd. Now, in 2018, he goes back to Brad Raffensperger. Sterling helped plan Brad Raffensperger's victory party after Raffensperger won Secretary of State race. The two have been longtime acquaintances through North Fulton politics after the win. Raffensperger appointed Sterling as Chief Operating Officer of the Secretary of State's office in late 2018, early 2019. He started in January 2019 as COO. Then, here, keep this in mind, then transitioned in November 2019 to Voting System Implementation Manager to oversee Georgia's new Dominion paper ballot system rollout. So we all know, this is old news, but we all know that Gabriel Sterling basically left his full-time employment with the Secretary of State's office, and he is the one that implemented Dominion paper ballot system in the entire state of Georgia. He put it in place. Now, Gabriel Sterling has been one of the strongest public defenders of the Georgia 2020 election results. So I don't want to spend a lot more time on Gabriel Sterling, but just some facts that no evidence, none whatsoever, no demonstrations of hacking the possibility or hacking computer systems, hacking the Dominion voting machine, anything and everything. No matter how much testimony and fact about voter rolls, regardless of what it is, Gabriel Sterling has never bought in, never admitted, never accepted anything is wrong whatsoever with our voting system. So, Georgia 2020 results. He has repeatedly pushed back hard against claims that the election was stolen. The most famous moment came on December 1st, 2020, in an emotional press conference. Remember when he came out and he went after then still President Donald Trump? It has to stop, Mr. President. You have not condemned these actions or this language. What you don't have the ability to do, and you need to step up and say this, is stop inspiring people to commit political acts of violence. All right, someone's going to get hurt, someone's going to get shot, someone's going to get killed. So, Gabriel Sterling, we could really spend a lot of time on. On January 4th, 2021, Sterling had another press conference he called Anti-Disinformation Monday. Remember, when he came out and everything was disinformation, and he had a press conference that he labeled Anti-Disinformation Monday, where he went through Trump's specific fraud claims one by one and said they were easily proven false, and the Trump's legal team had intentionally misled people. So this is Gabriel Sterling. A little more. Let's see if I want to go a little further into this. On the Dominion voting system, Sterling has consistently defended Georgia's Dominion system. He has said the machine does not flip votes. The system is secure, auditable, and has performed well through multiple high turnout elections. Claims about Dominion were ridiculous, and a lie in 2020, and it's a lie now. These are some of his quotes. He is against paper ballots. He's definitely against paper ballots. Paper ballots versus current election system. Sterling strongly opposes switching to hand-marked paper ballots only. He has called replacing the current system nightmarish because of the massive cost, training, and logistics involved. All right. He testified that it would cost millions of extras for printers and it could cause major problems, especially in big counties like Fulton. So Gabriel Sterling has never found any fault in 2020. He has pushed back on anyone that is not satisfied with the election system. And for me, again, this show, so you can be clear, if you like Gabriel Sterling and you're voting for Gabriel Sterling, my clear opinion is no. But does he have a pathway in the general election? No. Now, Tim Fleming, I said, if he's the nominee, could he win? I put a maybe. Gabriel Sterling, if he becomes the nominee. Now, I'm going to come back to something, because if he becomes the nominee, no, he cannot win, because I predict there's enough people in the election integrity circle that it would be a cold day somewhere, down south, deep within the core of the earth, as we call it, before they will vote for Gabriel Sterling. HE double hockey sticks, no. So we're going to get back to that. Now, here is the one I struggle with, because I have been in so many meetings with this fine gentleman. Yes. I'm going to get yelled at saying, wow, you call this guy your friend? Yes. I have spoke to Ted Metz. This is Ted Metz. He's running for Secretary of State. And I have spoke to him before today's show. I talked to him about why he's getting in the race. I threw some of my concerns out about him getting into the race. Painful as it is, Ted Metz cannot win the general election. He cannot. Now, as far as election systems, what we need to correct and have people to be able to trust and verify and feel confident in voting, that's Ted Metz. I'll give it to him. I cannot take that away. When it comes to the election, this guy is head and shoulders of information, knowledge. He can answer everything the Constitution says about our elections, every law. He can go into what the Founding Fathers intended, what the laws are in the state of Georgia. I do not think there's many people out there that has attended or studied election integrity as much as Ted Metz. But at the end of the day, much to regret here to say it, because it's going to upset some people. I'll look you right in the eye. He's a 3% candidate. He's a 3% candidate. And he could be the candidate that helps push a runoff with someone like a Tim Fleming, even a Gabe Sterling. What if you're sitting out there today and you say, I don't want Tim Fleming as my nominee? Ted could possibly do that, possibly, because I'm going to show you here this guy's intentions. He's a veteran. Ted Metz is a veteran. He's a great guy. All right. But here's the background of his attempt to run for office. Ted Metz has run for statewide office in Georgia 4 times. He ran for insurance commissioner in 2014 as a libertarian. All right. This is the race where he did get 3.43%, 86,000 votes. Now, let's write this down, 86,427. We're going to write that one down because I think that's the one he actually had the largest return. Now, in 2018, and at that time he ran as a libertarian. In 2018, he ran for governor as a libertarian, and he received 0.9. All right? This is 2018, 0.9, 37,000 votes. Then in 2022, he ran for Secretary of State as a libertarian. He received 2.8% of the vote. 108,000 votes that time, right? 108,000 votes. Okay? Now, that was against Brad Raffensperger and the Democrat, but he got 2.8. Now, in 2026, he's running for Secretary of State again. He switched parties from his current run. He's currently running as a Republican in the May 19th primary. He started in the Republican Party, active in the Ron Paul movement. That is correct. And local GOP roles. So Ted is not distant from the Republican Party. He switched to the Libertarian in 2014. He served as the Libertarian Party of Georgia chairman and switched back to the Republican Party for this year's race. Okay? He focuses heavily on election reform, especially pushing to eliminate electronic voting systems. I'm telling you. But financially, doesn't have the funding it's going to take to do it, to get the word out, to get his message out. And he could be the 4% candidate, maybe 5%. But I'm going to look you at the camera. Ted Metz cannot win the general election. Ted Metz cannot win the primary. Please, I hear it. I have to pause. I know some of you all too well, and I love you, but Ted cannot win the primary. What Ted can do here is he can convolute some things and push us into a runoff, and you may end up with a Secretary of State. Remember, we're going back to Catherine Cox. We're going back to electronic voting machines all the way since 2002. And if you're sitting out there today listening to me and you want paper ballots, you might want to pay attention. Well, Ted is the only one that's looked directly in the eye and told us, if you want paper ballots and you want your chance, you might want to pay attention. Ted Metz is an amazing guy. Now, the next guy on the list, this one is difficult because I'm for sure this is going to be the one. This is going to be the one that's going to get me some really, really angry, nasty comments. I met this individual back years ago at the state capitol when this individual was a Democrat. And I met this individual then. I'd never met him before. And someone said to me, "Do you not know this guy?" Later, he became a Republican. I became friends with him. This is where it's going to get very... People are going to say, "Oh, wow, you call yourself a friend?" I became friends with the guy. He used to come on this show a lot. I have never made an accusation towards him. I've never accused him of anything. And I don't today. But I know the reality of politics. And I know Democrats are poised and set up to try to maybe run the table. And I know what could happen as far as losing an office, and not just losing an office, hurting an entire ticket. Okay? I know that. And I know what happens if Ossoff and we have someone that the Democrats really go after, that hurt the ticket. So, as reluctant as I am to do this, the facts of doing it, the reason for doing it, I can't help it. It actually turns my stomach because I do not dislike the individual. They've not done anything to me. Now, before I go too far, here's Eric Swalwell. Was running for governor in California. And we're not going to spend a lot of time, but we're just going to put it out here just so you can get a visual. And he has left the race for governor of California. And this is a woman, Lana Drews. She recently accused him of drugging and raping her in 2018. Okay? She has accused him of drugging and raping her since 2018. In 2018. All right? Just saying. He just recently resigned, and here you go. Eric Swalwell dropped out of the California governor's race last Sunday after sexual misconduct allegations surfaced. Allegations. in San Francisco. He resigned from Congress the next day. Now, this is where Governor Newsom has put out a proclamation for a special election for Eric Swalwell's congressional seat. But he's also pulled out of the race. I'm going to show you some headlines. They're not my headlines, okay? But they're headlines. They're out there, all right? If this guy is the nominee for Secretary of State, the Democrats will swalwell him. The Democrats will swalwell him is what I'm calling it. Vernon Jones. Now let me look you in the eye. He's been on this program 25 times. I've had conversations with him. Okay? I knew this day would come. He called me about 3 weeks before he got into the race, asked me what I thought the temperature was. I told him, quote, I thought his political ship had sailed at that time. That's what I told him. Now don't call me and ask me if you don't want the truth. Don't call and ask me what I think if you don't want to hear it. And I study politics. Period. I told him 3 weeks before he got in the race when he called me. I thought his political, capital had really expended when he ran for the congressional race against Mike Collins, endorsed by Donald Trump, and lost in the 10th district in 2022. But he chose to get in the race, and I didn't attack him. I'm not attacking the guy today. I'm laying it out. If you ask me about a vote, this is vying for Trump support. Vernon Jones faces history of misconduct toward women. All right? Now, he was running out in the 10th district. Polling numbers had him far behind Mike Collins. They didn't go after him real hard. If this guy becomes the nominee for Secretary of State on the Republican side, the media will wait. This is a prediction. Gosh, I got a knot in my stomach saying this. The media, in my prediction, will wait till about 3 weeks. They want the governor's race. Democrats want the governor's race so bad. Have you seen the dirt, the nasty, the fighting, the spitting on each other, basically the cutting each other already in politics? Really? You don't think so, right? I mean, Democrats want the governor's seat. They want John Ossoff, governor's seat, and they want the power so bad. If Vernon Jones is the nominee for the Republican Party going for Secretary of State into November, about 3 weeks before early voting, I predict that all media will come after him like you have never seen before. I know how it is when you run for office and they come after you. And it will drag the ticket down. We won't only lose Secretary of State, it will drag the ticket down. Now, like I said, this one's going to get me. Now, like I said, he's never been convicted of anything. Got it? Want to be clear. Here's another one. Here's 11 Alive back then, right? Vernon Jones run for Congress clouded by rape allegations. She never rescinded the allegations, but alleged victim dropped the charges out of fear. All right? I'm just telling you, if you think he becomes the nominee in May. Now, I'm just going to give you a little bit, and this is some background here. Main sexual misconduct allegations. The most serious claim is 2004. Well, it's 2026. Any others? No, not that I'm aware of, folks. Just saying. You don't like what I'm saying. I got it. But if you think they're going to let this guy, when they have in grasp Democrats, the most serious claim is 2004 sexual assault rape allegation. A 29-year-old woman told the Rockdale County Hospital staff at January 2, 2005 that Jones raped her for 5 days earlier at his home. All right? Now, she reported he later threatened her, saying he knew where she lived. The case was investigated by the DA at Georgia Bureau of Investigations. It never reached a grand jury. The woman ultimately dropped the claim, citing fear, media pressure, and her name being leaked, reported by the DeKalb police chief. All right? Her confidant later said she never recanted. Jones' attorney called it consensual, three-way encounter. Jones denied any inappropriate touching. Now that's okay. All right. Now the key coverage was 11 Alive. Vernon Jones runs for Congress. Atlanta Journal, vying for Trump support. Vernon Jones faces history of misconduct towards women. Other accusations of misconduct towards women. The AJC also reports in 2004 DeKalb Commissioner Elaine Bauer filed a police report claiming Jones deliberately bumped her shoulder to shoulder and made her feel threatened in 2003, right? Paula Holder sued Jones for trespass and assault after he confronted her at home over flooding complaints. The suit settled out of court. All right. This is Jones has denied wrongdoing. Non-sexual investigations and controversies, ethics violations, corruption probe, discrimination lawsuit, grand jury criticized his large taxpayer-funded security detail. These are covered in all the sources. You can find all the sources. Now, let me remind you that at no time was he convicted, was he found guilty. At no time. Be very clear. But if he's the nominee, okay? If he's the nominee for the Republicans for Secretary of State, the Democrats, he used to be a Democrat in DeKalb County. The Democrats know him. They know him very well. I never turned on him as far as him saying he was a Republican. I don't do that today. But Democrats in DeKalb County, they know him. And I think if this guy was to be your nominee as Secretary of State, you can count on what comes next. And will it hurt the ticket? Will we just not have a Secretary of State? Will a Democrat win? And will that hurt the ticket all the way down? Bottom line. So, all of these factors could result in a Tim Fleming, could result in a Gabe Sterling winning. Now, how many times in one day? So, This is the candidate right here that I predict and I think is the most viable candidate that no one can go after. This is the candidate that can win in November. It's Kelvin King. Now, I did not just meet Kelvin King. I'm going to give you the background. Someone's going to say, well, you like Kelvin King. Let me tell you something. I met Janelle King, actually, years ago when a guy by the name of Dick Williams used to have a bow tie back when the Georgia Gang was worth watching on Sunday morning. I never missed Dick Williams on Sunday morning, right, for the Georgia Gang. That's back when it was actually worth watching. And one morning, this young black lady was on there, and I was like, I'm going to just tell you, I get up and turn on. This young black lady is on there, very young. I'll tell you, Janelle, if you're watching, or if you do watch, you were very young at that time. You're still young, Janelle. You're still young. Sorry, just can't do the broadcast and end up getting in trouble here with Janelle as far as very young. So I turn on the broadcast one day. There's this young black lady, and I'm immediately, okay, let's see what direction she's coming from, because anytime on that show, when Dick Williams would have a new guest on the show, a pundit there on the show, you start listening to see, are they conservative? Are they Republicans? Are they moderates? Are they Democrats? And by the end of that first show, I looked and I said, wow. Wow. So I went and I emailed the Georgia Gang and I said, please send a message to this young lady, to Dick Williams. I said, please send a message to this young lady. I was amazed with what she had to say today. I really enjoyed it, and please keep her on the show. Very first show, I think she did, because I watched every Sunday. Now, that being said, that's how long I've known Janelle King, and I've been following and watched all the work she's done over the years. And yes, she is currently on the state election board, Kelvin King's wife. And yes, I've heard controversy that she should not be on the state election board. At the same time, her husband's running for Secretary of State. I've heard all that controversy. I got to put it out there. If you guys have a judgment on that, that's up to you as voters. But she is a member of the state election board. He is running for Secretary of State. I have yet to hear an answer. I think I have an answer, but I think Kelvin King and Janelle have said there's not been a determination that if he becomes Secretary of State that she would step down from state election board. I don't know that answer. But as a candidate, okay, Tim Fleming, pretty sure you're getting electronic voting machines. Pretty sure he's going to be right with the status quo that you've always had. So if you want any changes in the office, I'm not saying I don't trust Tim Fleming, not saying that, but right? Gabe Sterling, total no. Absolutely not. Right? Vernon Jones, I'm just concerned of the attacks. I mean, I don't expect Vernon to be happy with me. If I see him at an event and he talks to me, I will be nice to Vernon. I would still like to be Vernon's friend, and I can understand if he don't want to talk to me. But you, the voters, is what's most important here at all times. So with Vernon Jones, I feel the attacks are going to be so enormous that not only will he lose, it will take the ticket down. But this is the guy that can stabilize the ticket. Yes, he can. This is the guy that they're not going to be able, the Democrats are going to be doing everything in the world to try to figure out, hey, what do we have on this guy? What can we do to this guy? Can we bring this guy down? No. And I'll tell you, I will tell you, I think in the political, I've covered politics in the state of Georgia day in and day out for 15 years. And I think he's one of the most solid guys I've ever run into in politics. As someone that I feel, now someone said to me, well, I don't like he didn't say this exactly this way. And I don't like he didn't say this exactly this way. Folks, here's the thing. Need to put someone in the office of character, moral values that we can trust, okay, to do the right thing. Need to put someone in the office that will run the office. We have a history of Secretary of States that really just don't run the office. They just turn over the keys to someone else. We need someone as Secretary of State that will go through everything. Licensing, everything. Remember what I told you they're responsible for. We have to have a Secretary of State that understands all the responsibilities. And I'm going to show you something on the major complaints in the Secretary of State's office. And we have to have someone we could talk to. Brad Raffensperger, they don't pick up the phone. They don't let you in the office. He runs from you when you try to talk to him. So Tim Fleming's a nice guy, but do I think he's really just going to open the doors on the office and let you and I come in and say, hi, how are you? Or we have this concern or that concern? Or we want this piece of legislation? No, I don't see it. Gabriel Sterling, do I think he's going to? No, absolutely not. He doesn't care what we think today. He's not going to care then. Vernon Jones? No. I do not think the office would be run efficiently the way it should be if Vernon Jones is Secretary of State. But someone that we could trust when it comes time to do the right thing, and we could talk to, and we could share our concerns, and we can reason with him, and we can maybe have him see something. Like, I will tell you this, I've heard, and I don't want to quote Kelvin King, but I've heard him say in several meetings that when he started running for Secretary of State, he started really digging into all the election integrity stuff, and he's absorbed it. He really has. And he's on board with making sure we have accurate elections. But this is something I want to say, okay? And I'll give you a little highlight here. It's on the screen. The guy's 51 years old. He's a Republican businessman. He's a U.S. Air Force veteran and a candidate for Georgia Secretary of State. He ran for U.S. Senate in 2022. He finished fifth in a crowded primary, 3.5% crowded against Herschel Walker. Very crowded. So don't take that percentage and think anything into that. Because I will say this. This is where I met him. I bet you I went to 30 Senate events. And I met Kelvin King on the campaign trail. And I spent, if you wrap it all up of the Senate, I've spent hours and hours directly with Kelvin King when he ran for Senate. Went head-to-head with him a couple times. Yeah, I went head-to-head with him. And what I really enjoyed is I went here, he went here, and then I realized he could take me. That's a joke, that's a joke, that's a joke. So, hey, I didn't push it, no. Now, his early life, right? He's from Macon, Georgia. He was raised in Mableton, Georgia. His mom, Jeanette, was 15 years old when she gave birth to him. She left an abusive marriage and raised Kelvin and his younger sister. The family often struggled financially. Kelvin took on responsibilities early as man of the family. Now, this is not giving up a secret. This is on AI, and this is his bio. He tells and he talks about this. And his mom is an amazing person. I have sat down with his mother several times. She's an amazing person. She's a strong person. I've met her. And this is not why I think he should be Secretary of State or he can win. I'm just saying This background is very strong. He has credited his mother's decision to carry the pregnancy and a strong values instilled in his mother and grandmother with shaping his life and conservative principles. All right? Air Force, United States Air Force Academy, served 5 years on active duty. He has a business. I think I have something there. He has a business that he started. So I met his grandmother. I went to his office and I met his grandmother face to face because he would tell stories about his grandmother on the campaign trail. And what I thought was really neat when I met his grandmother is she let me know the firm conversation she had with her grandson when he made a decision he was going to run for a political office. And I'm just going to say, not able to remember the quote. She basically said to him, and she was shaking, I think she was shaking her finger when she was telling me that, she said, "You better not go and turn out like the rest of them." Something of that nature. You better not go and turn out like the rest of them do, or you'll answer to me. She was amazing. It was really an enjoyable time, and it really said to me, this is where this guy's from, and this is the strength, that this guy has. Just go meet him, okay? Now, he owns a small business. And that's my take on these candidates. And I'm going to show you something else. That's my take on these candidates. I did not say anything to upset you. I did not. I'm not trying to attack these candidates. You've asked me. This is what I see. This is what I think are the Republicans' best chances. And I don't want to see you take a vote where you end up and you say to me going into November, I don't want you calling me. No, I didn't mean that. I don't want you calling me and texting me after the primary and the runoff is concerned. You don't want to run off with Tim Fleming and Gabe Sterling. You don't want to run off with Tim Fleming and Vernon Jones. You don't want Gabe Sterling taking this little chunk. You don't want it. Vernon Jones taking this little chunk because he's going to get it. Ted Metz taking this little chunk, and then the next thing you know, Gabe Sterling's taking a chunk. Kelvin, Ted Metz, and the next thing you know, you got a Tim Fleming, Vernon Jones runoff. And then the next thing you know, you got Tim Fleming running in the general. And then I get phone calls from some of you that say, do we hold our nose and vote for Tim Fleming? Because maybe the Democrats saying they want to go to paper ballots. I'm telling you, you can get this really convoluted, and it also can affect all the down ballot. Think about it. Now, here's some of the things, because we talk about elections, The biggest issue was long delays and backlogs in processing license applications and renewals. Professions hit hard included nurses, cosmetologists, nail technicians, general contractors, and other people waiting months for approval, with thousands of complaints rolling in. This is Secretary of State's office. Significant gripes, outdated systems, reliance on paper-based processes, and old online portals that frequently logged out users out, froze, and made simple renewals take weeks of phone calls and persistence to the Secretary of State's office. Slow processing times. Nursing, we have a problem getting nurses, right? Nursing licenses once averaged 48 days over applications set in substantial backlogs. Underfunding. A lot of the complaints, these are just complaints. Critics and Raffensperger himself pointed out that license fees, around 25 to 30 million a year, mostly went to the state's general fund instead of staffing or modernizing the division, leaving it historically cash-strapped. All right? So, I mean, these are some of the big, and don't forget, when it comes to the Secretary of State's office, First Liberty Building and Loan never registered its investments as securities with the Georgia Secretary of State's Division of Securities Division, for more than a decade. That meant the office had zero visibility into what the company was doing. No required financial disclosures, no oversight of the offering that turned out to be a Ponzi scheme. The Securities Division only learned about First Liberty after the company abruptly shut down in mid-2025. So, this Ponzi scheme, all right? The Georgia Uniform Securities Act of 2008 makes the Secretary of State and the state's Commission of Securities, his office is required to register or receive notice filing for almost every security offered or sold to Georgia residents unless specifically exempt. All right? That's why even, all right, the state legislature, I think I have it back here. I think the state legislature tried to pull that power away from the Secretary of State's office because of the failure that happened. The general election, November 3rd, 2026, right? Here is the runoff for the general election. Whoa, I wanted to go back. I'm sorry. The general election, November 3rd, 2026. Now, I want to show you a couple things on data for voters. All right? Just for examples. In 2018, in the Secretary of State's office, December 4th, 2018, Secretary of State's office, Brad Raffensperger beat John Barrow, all right, 51.89% to 48.11%, 709,049 votes to 764,855. What if you took that 86,000? What if you take 86,000 votes that Ted Metz got? I mean, there's differences. There's many things that can change what happens here. Just showing you the vote count, how tight it was then. Now, this is in 2018. Remember Brad Raffensperger, right? Had to win that in a runoff. So what I just showed you was the win against John Barrow in the runoff. But don't forget, November 6, 2018, Brad Raffensperger got 49.1, 48.7 went to Barrow. But remember, this is a libertarian, and right now a libertarian's not in this race, but I'm giving you an example of what could happen. Just 2.2% sent this race into a runoff. So when I tell you that someone could be a 4% candidate, and you say, how could that affect things? Just showing you right here. So in 2018, it wasn't a clean win. Now, in 2022, in the Secretary of State's race, Brad Raffensperger, Jody Hice, David Bellal, and T.J. Hudson. That was the primary, Raffensperger. And then let's see what I have here. Is this? Nope, that's a different one. I'm sorry. I got these backwards here. Then we have the general election, right? Is this the, that's it right there. I'm sorry. Oh, I didn't bring that one over. I'm sorry, I didn't bring that one over. And then the general election in November 8th, 2022, Brad Raffensperger, 53.2%, B. Gwynn, 44%, and that's where Ted Metz got 2.8%. So what I'm saying is keep in mind, okay, if you scan this, you can get our Substack. Let me see here. I was told that if you scan that, you can get our Substack. I'll put that back up in a minute. So today, our Secretary of State race, which we've gone over, is very clear. All right. One, you've had electronic voting machines since 2002. 2002. It's 2026. You've had 3 elected Republicans, 1 appointed for a short period of time since that date. You went to Dominion voting system in 2019 for the 2020 presidential election cycle. You want paper ballots right now. For the most part, even Democrats are asking for paper ballots, hand-marked, not even tabulators. A lot of people want hand-counted at the precincts. So that being said, the Secretary of State race is very important, and who you put in that office next. Keep in mind, this is your chance. Chance to just keep things rolling as they are. To me, that would be a Gabriel Sterling. To me, that would be a Tim Fleming. Or maybe our chance now to put the brakes on and get verifiable voting that we can trust, and citizens will feel good that their vote counts and it's accurate. That's where you're at. I didn't give this report for any reason whatsoever to attack anyone. I didn't. Just so you can think this all the way through when you place your vote. All right, so I will tell you this. Next up on the list, I'm hoping it's Friday. Next up on the list, I hope, is Lieutenant Governor. I'm really going to attempt to try to get the Lieutenant Governor race next. I am going to do Attorney General. Bill Calzert. Somebody asked me, is Bill Calzert candidate, state senator? Is he related to Brian Kemp? Absolutely. We'll go into great deal on that. Bill Calzert running for Attorney General against Brian Strickland. We'll go into the Lieutenant Governor's race. We absolutely will. Get into the school superintendent's race. I'm going to be talking to a lot of candidates this weekend. All right? Because I will be attending tomorrow. First of all, do you know Myron Mixon? Myron Mixon, 5-time world barbecue champ. That's right. A night in Unadilla, Southern Comfort. Now, this list of candidates is not complete. Okay? They've added more, but let me tell you, if you go to the Georgia Republican Party 2nd District Facebook page, there is an event. Go to the Georgia Republican Party 2nd District Facebook page. There is an event where you can check it out. And they have more candidates. Mike Collins, Burt Jones, Yasgur, Jackson. I hope Rick Jackson's campaign doesn't try to cause a problem with me down there. I hope not. Buddy Carter, Calzert, King, Jones, Strickland. Now, I will talk to Brian Strickland and Bill Calzert tomorrow. All right? Then Chuck Hand will be there, obviously. Myron Mixon, let's see, couple couple candidates there for state school superintendent. They've added more candidates since the graphic on here. Now, this is not going to be, now let me, this is what's been explained to me. So if you want to go down there, please, it starts about 5 o'clock. What time does this start? I will get this done and over with, I promise. It starts about, tickets and more info, 2nd District GAGOP.org. 2nd District GAGOP.org. I think it starts at 5 o'clock. All the information's on there. Now, this is not going to be your typical boring, please don't yell at me, other people out there. This is not going to be your typical boring candidate, giving these long, drawn-out speeches. I have been told, this is what I've been told, candidates are basically going to get to go on the stage, say hello, I'm running for this, and I want to shake your hand, and they're going to be working the room. It's going to be great barbecue, obviously, right? Myron Mixon, 5-time world champ. They're going to be working the room with the people, and there's going to be a band. Give it up for the band, baby. Yes, there's going to be a band. I can't. One more time. There's going to be a band. That's right. BKP. You want to coach? Come check it out. You ever seen me at an event with a band? Come on. Bring it on. So anyhow, it's going to be, the candidates going to be available to talk to you, ask them questions. I don't know how long they're staying because a lot of events are happening right now. Go to an event. Go find an event. Go up, ask candidates questions. There's two candidates. Well, there's two kind of candidates you definitely don't vote for. And we'll talk about that a little more Monday. Candidates that don't answer your questions, that will not give you an opportunity to talk to them. Now, if they don't let you stand up in the room and ask a question, that's fine. But afterwards, if at no time you go to all these events and you can't look at a candidate and talk about your personal taxes or maybe something in your family, constituent services that you really need, that's what they're there for, then don't vote for them. Don't vote for them. And I'm going to tell you the other candidate. Now, some candidates can't show up because they're statewide candidates and there's so many events. But in your district, if your candidates don't show up, don't vote for them. Like Jim Kingston in 1st District, Jim Kingston has not showed up for one candidate forum or debate. None. Right? Look at the empty seats in the 11th Congressional District where they won't show up. I'll get more into that Monday. Candidates don't show up, don't vote for them. Candidates won't take your question, don't vote for them. Now, I'm going to head off into the weekend, but before I go, thank you for your kind words. And for the uglies out there, the uglies, go ahead, be ugly all you want. All right? I know you're going to attack me. You go to our Substack. All right? Go to our Substack. Take this down. And you go there. Hang tight there. I was told you could scan that. right there. And it'll take you straight to our Substack. So for the uglies out there, have at it. But thank you very much for all your kind words. Ask me questions. Tell me what you think today. Tell me where you disagree. Tell me your opinion. That's okay. All right? But one, don't tune in if you don't understand. I focus on studying politics and the best ways we can win, who can win, who should not be our candidate, and whatever it may be. But here's one thing. And thank you for I got a text, an email. No one pays me. Got it? No one pays me. I'm not on a candidate's payroll. You may hear me say, I like a candidate, not on their payroll. You may hear me say, I think a candidate can win an election, not on the candidate's payroll. Nope. Someone said, are you being paid to dish dirt? Look you in the eye. No. I dish the damn dirt for free. Hey, come see me tomorrow down there in Unadilla and get our Substack. And, oh, here's my favorite one of the day. No bad words, no bad words. I will see you next week. Please share this with your friends. All right? Yeah, share this with your friends. I will see you next week. Bada bing, bada boom, right? Is that what we say? How do we say that? I'll see you next week. Please, again, go scan this. Later.
With my 35 years of experience, our team at U.S. Asset Management can deliver professional investment management, financial planning to help you target your goals, and even specialized divorce financial analysis if you need it. We are here to help you make better decisions with your money. Call U.S. Asset Management today, and let's get to work in your financial future.
The left is siding with illegals, attacking ICE, and fighting to let non-citizens vote. Republican Kelvin King is a graduate of the Air Force Academy, Air Force veteran, and conservative businessman. As Georgia's Secretary of State, Kelvin will put Americans first, root out corruption, clean up voter rolls, and restore confidence in our elections. The other candidates had their chance and failed. Republican Kelvin King for Secretary of State, leadership Georgia voters can trust.
Pro-Trump warrior Steve Gooch won't just cut property taxes in Georgia. He'll throw them straight in the wood chipper.
Senior citizens on fixed income shouldn't be forced from their homes. Neither should veterans who have served our country and fought for our freedoms. And neither should anyone else for that matter. Frankly, these crazy property taxes are un-American. I'll tear them to shreds. We'll make home ownership great again.
Steve Gooch for Lieutenant Governor. Toughest tax cutter Georgia's ever seen.
Do you already have your investments with Fidelity? I'm David Cross with U.S. Asset Management. Did you know that you can assign your investment management to my team and put my 35 years of experience to work for you? You simply assign us as your investment manager and you keep the same username and password. Professional management, and you get to work with someone who shares your values. Call U.S. Asset Management today and put us to work for you.